This is what it looks like to be on the top of YouTube. Giving away cars, hanging out with friends, and living a carefree, fun life. David had the perfect formula with 20 million people watching every single video. And then bring in a pandemic that wouldn't allow him to vlog, add in a scandal with his childhood best friend, and layer in him hurting someone really badly in a stunt. And David's vlog was no more. Or that's probably what you thought. David's vlog always had an expiry date, and that was by design. But there's a lesson in David's vlogs on change, creativity, and breaking the norm. First, let's find out how David crafted the Vlog Squad and came up with this perfect formula for his videos. This story starts in Chicago. So you're a high school student who doesn't really enjoy being there. What do? What about this new app called Vine? Maybe it was the teenage attention span, or maybe it was just a good distraction from school, but David was a natural. After just 1 year of making Vines, David had grown a pretty big following. But in 2014, when he graduated high school, his parents gave him an ultimatum. Either he goes to college or he has to move out. He decided to take a leap of faith. David drove across the country from Chicago to Los Angeles to create with some other popular Vine creators. After a year of doing that and not finding a ton of success when he tried to pivot to YouTube, he knew he needed to change something. Despite having 1 million followers on Vine, he still only had 40,000 subscribers on YouTube, and no matter what he tried, they just wouldn't convert. He realized that with the content he was making on Vine, he just hadn't been able to connect to his audience. No one really knew who he was. So how could he fix that problem? Vlogs. That was his answer. 3 times a week forced him to stay consistent and get his audience to come back on a regular basis. Along the way, he started creating with more friends, allowing him to make bigger and bigger videos with more people and higher stakes. But I think you know the rest of that story. The thing is that vlogging was a big trend back then, but David stood out from the very beginning. So it's no surprise that hundreds of vlogs later, he was a mega success. In fact, he was probably one of the biggest creators on the platform. But the question you're probably asking is, how was the system designed to fail, and why did it all come collapsing in? I'm in my car, like David Dobrik, except my car is empty. The difference between David Dobrik and the other vloggers of the time is that David's vlogs had 4 distinct elements to them. And that starts with the teasers that he'd put in before every video. Let's look at an example. Every single video starts out with a little gag and delivers on what you clicked on pretty quickly.
Fuck, bro. Finally! Thank you, Jesus!
You get a quick hit of dopamine, feel good, and then you're hit with that second element. That sound is really distinct, and I'd bet that probably triggered a memory for you. Since the very first vlog he uploaded, he found a super catchy and interesting sound to use in the intro. That sound forces you to pay attention, and it's really memorable and distinct, so you know exactly who it is. And then next, we had the third element, which is a varied cast. The Vlog Squad is the group of friends that David Dobrik hangs out with. But why is this an important element? Having people to make jokes with allows David to have control of the setting and tell the story how he sees fit. Not to mention that it does make things a lot more fun too. By not breaking from that group, you built trust with those people and you started to feel like you got to know them, making you feel like you're that last member of the Vlog Squad. But outside of people from the Vlog Squad, they have to bring value to get included. But the fourth element, this is the most important one. If you've watched any of David's videos, you've heard him laughing like that before. That's because he's basically the laugh track to his own videos. This element is so important to guide you through his videos. It gives you permission to laugh, and let's be honest, his laugh's pretty funny too. So those 4 elements, teaser, theme song, regular cast, and laugh track, all contribute to making his vlogs interesting and unique from the rest. And it doesn't even matter what the story is. This sounds familiar, kind of like my favorite show Seinfeld, actually. Every episode of Seinfeld starts out with a cold opening bit, and then they have a distinct theme song. It's pretty memorable. Whatever that sound. Yeah, okay. There's a regular cast, Jerry, George, Elaine, and Kramer, and also a laugh track. So there's some pretty weird similarities between the two, no? What really happened is that his format was forced to change. These changes aren't bad, but it's just not what people were used to. So this is what I mean when I say that the format was basically built to fail. So is David's vlog basically just a sitcom? Maybe. Hold on, what even is a sitcom? In case you didn't know, the word sitcom stands for situational comedy. Basically, rather than sketch comedy, like what David used to make on Vine, situational comedy relies on the same set of characters and people getting put into settings that create the comedy around them. Think of Seinfeld's The Chinese Restaurant episode. There's 3 to 4 storylines all going on at once in a single setting, creating a story and ultimately building some really funny moments. If you take that definition and apply it to David's vlog, vlogs, it lines up. First, let's take a couple storylines from his putting drunk texts on a billboard video. There are two main storylines in this video. First, Jason dresses up as an alien and all of his friends react to the makeup in a variety of different funny settings. But that's a situation that's been created for the video. Jason got the makeup and the punchline was delivered when he scared his friends. Then the next storyline, putting Todd's drunk texts to Natalie on a billboard.
Turn around. What? What is that?
There was a funny moment that was built in their own personal lives, and David put that on a billboard, creating a situation he could put his friends in that would be funny. So when they went to go see the billboard and everyone was laughing at how funny it is, that's situational comedy. But the thing is that I framed this section to say that his vlogs were built to fail, and I still haven't really told you why. So, let me answer that. To make this point, I'm going to pull from two very different but also very similar sitcoms, Seinfeld and The Office. These are really good examples because they've all been off the air for a while. Now, Seinfeld only had 180 episodes and The Office 236, which doesn't really compare to David's 664 vlogs, but as a whole, if you put them all together, they can be a good indication to compare with each other. At the end of season 7 of Seinfeld, Larry David left the show. That left the writing and format to have some pretty significant changes given the creative freedom from the rest of the team. The same thing for The Office. At the end of season 7, Steve Carell stepped away. Because of how significant his character was, the show was never really the same. Wait a minute, David's first vlog was uploaded in 2015. That's 7 years ago. And 6 years later, he faced a ton of controversy. When you look at the ratings, you can see that these changes definitely had an impact on how the seasons were viewed by fans overall. And there's a reason why this is relevant too. When you're running a show for as long as these were on, you really can't avoid making drastic changes at some point. But that wasn't the only change. For nearly all of 2020, David couldn't vlog because of pandemic restrictions. Once he started trying to come back, a bunch of controversies popped up, including a big scandal where he hurt a good friend of his who was also a part of the vlog squad. But I don't think that this alone ruined David's career. David isn't done. David has still been posting a ton of different stuff on Snapchat, which I recently learned from this video by Tejas is actually super lucrative. But it's not that David Dobrik really failed, just more so that he moved on. And if I'm being totally honest, I don't think David is done with his YouTube channel. He's just stepping away so he can change it up later, and people aren't gonna think of him for the vlogs as much. It's like a way to transition to the next phase. But the question is what and how much is it gonna break from his old format? If he gives it enough time, he can create whatever he wants, and I'm sure his audience is still gonna love it. So really, David Dobrik built something that had an expiry date, but that doesn't mean that he himself is done. If you like this video, you're gonna like this video that I made about why AI is taking over YouTube. On top of that, let me know what you think about David Dobrik down below. Be sure to subscribe while you're down there, and I'll see you next week. Peace!